Hello and welcome guys, my name is Thomas and today I'd like to make another little tutorial for you guys on Friday 13th in Germany, and it's quite late right now, but hey, I'm going to make a tutorial just for you. I don't know if this comes out this night, but it will come out next night, maybe followed by another full tutorial, but this is an in-between tutorial where we clean up some mistakes I made, or where we discuss ideas I've had over the usage of this templating system, because I've gone ahead and the best way to test your products is by using them in a productive setup. Yes, I've said this right now, right here. Now, of course, we have it. I removed the code that I've showed you in the last vlog with the Iteratables. And why do we need Iteratables in the first place? Well, you cannot iterate stuff in here. For example, if you had a dynamic table like this one, and yeah, you would fetch something out of the DB, there's no way currently on how you can represent the data. But that's not what we want to worry about in this video. We want to worry about something very dramatic differently. We want to worry about cleanness of code and reusing of stuff. So as you can see, if I highlight templates, I've used that twice in the path variables. And why do we have globals if we don't ever use them? So of course I can rewrite this. And now, why is that useful? Why is that any useful that I rewrote this now? Well, imagine you had a couple of themes a user could choose from, and you had a little web form where they could change their default theme, but the structure of all the sub-themes was the same. Well, with one change, you can change everything. You can change the whole design. And yeah, so that's for that. Quite little thing, very dramatic change. Okay, another thing that we could talk about is this here. It's in our templates.class.php, and here you can see those var keywords. This is outdated. I've learned PHP from old fags, or people who learn by the old fag standard, and that's why I use var as a statement. And this was used in PHP 4 to introduce a variable in OOP context, but it was pointed out to me by a user that this is quite wrong nowadays. And what we want to do instead is we want to use a keyword private, like we would do in any other OOP language I've used before, like Java or C#. Well, what private is going to do is it's not public anymore. Of course, we say to private, but what that means is that the variables are only available to our function, which is very, very much more secure than having them public, because if they were public, you could just mess around with them, change them. We could make protected ones out of these. Well, no, we can't. But that they are private is a good thing. And the next thing that we want to change is we want to initialize all our variables with empty stuff, empty strings in that case. And yeah, there we are. And because I'm quite neat, I like to arrange these things in that sort of style, so you can always neatly see where something is. And that's just a recommendation. You don't have to do that. Some people hate me for doing this, but I like that. Okay, so the next thing that we want to change, this was cosmetic. The next thing that you should keep in mind is whenever you have a partial include error, wouldn't it be nice to tell the person who has this error what partial is actually missing? So in this case, we just check if the file exists or not. And partial inclusion error is quite okay. Partial inclusion error, yeah. You know that some partial couldn't be included, but what partial? Well, we can actually, of course, use the path variable that was applied to us. So we can say partial file, and then use our path variable. Oops, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at typing today. There we go. inclusion error. Okay, so why did that work right now, you might ask? Well, it did work. I didn't have to concatenate this on because I worked in double quotes. Double quotes take longer to process, but they are able to render those little variables. Some people also do this to their when they introduce variables. The most prominent example would be PHP Academy, who does this, and it's quite neat. So you can always reference, okay, so that's when I introduce a variable into a double quoted string. And yes, so basically a double quoted string takes longer to process, but it goes ahead and parses variables that have been supplied. Okay, and we are going to do the same thing for our file, for our normal file. Actually, we want to change this to base file inclusion error. And we do the same here. Oh my God, path. And here we go. And that should be it for this. Now we can check this out. First of all, make sure everything works. And then change it to some gibberish. Partial file, blah, 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 inclusion error. That's great. It's a bit of garbled English, but I think when you're not working at the time I am, and when you're in a better mood than I am, you can always do that better. And of course, they want to mess with our base file, and here it is, base file template test.tpl. Inclusion error, of course, because none exist. There we are. Okay, so that's pretty nice and handy. And also, what we can do, and this is something that I've noticed when working with this thing. Well, there are some convenience functions we can, but don't have to include. This, for example, is when you want to assign something empty. You could basically go ahead, if the search string, or if there was no replace string, you could go ahead and by default say it's an empty string. That is rather handy, and I will introduce this because every time now someone is just going to supply a search string, we are going to know that it's replaced with nothing. It's just a convenient function, and you can introduce this. As I already said, you don't have to do this. And personally, we don't have to do anything about this function anymore. We don't have to add any else clauses, because if we actually miss out on our search string, then PHP will do the work for us, and it will produce an error, missing argument 1. And that's enough for me, so I don't have to do anything here. And yeah. What else do we have to do? Of course, we can introduce the same kind of thing with the assigned values in the render partial, where we can basically say it's by default empty, and then we check if it's an array or something like that. And yeah, you could do this. You don't have to. I'm fine with how it is. And now another little neat thing that I've noticed over time what to do. I mean, there was an error, a strange error I had when working with our templating system, that, for example, Chrome didn't like to free its cache from our site. So whenever we had a design change, or whenever we had, in an iteratable or in a partial, something changed, it just wouldn't want to let it go. We could basically clear cache. We could F5, the 5-minute F5 trick, as I like to call it. And it wouldn't change. It just wouldn't change. And that's pretty ugly, right? So I went ahead and I've built in something into the show function of our class. And that's rather handy. What we can do is we can make a debug variable, which we by default set to false. And then before we actually echo out our template, we want to check if that's true. So if debug. Now, this is something that I noticed that works. Check this out. We can basically go ahead and supply a dynamic data thing as an HTML comment, and Google Chrome will always recache it because of that. And in my case, I use just the date with seconds, and that's quite nice. And so we will go ahead. We want to change in this TPL. We want to append. So that means dot and equals. Dot equals appends to something. And of course, we want to go ahead and basically just extend it with your standard HTML comment tags. And now we want to run a date function. And we want to use year, month, or we want to use day, month, year, capital Y for basically having it displayed with 4 digits. Lowercase y is 2 digits. H, capital H for 24 hours. Lowercase h for 12 hours, or 12, hour time with AM and PM. And of course, we want to have the minutes, which is I, and S for seconds. Don't ask me why they didn't make M the minutes, but that's how it is. Okay, so now we have our string. We want to just show the date with the seconds, and we don't want to mess it up. Now we're going to save and we want to refresh, and we have a parse error on line 70, which is the next line, and that is because I didn't use a semicolon. And there we are. So now I want to refresh, everything's fine. Now I want to enable the debug mode by just truing the show function. And that is rather strange. The error, I had this before. So now let's look at it in the terminal, because that's something that you have to do, by the way, now in PHP 5.3 and above. You have to go ahead and in your PHP ini set a time zone. So you just open up your PHP ini, which is by default etc php.ini or php/php.ini, and then you just want to look for zone. And here you have that variable, and mine is of course Euro Berlin. We want to just untick that, and here we are. Apache-ctl restart, I guess. Oh, I'm so bad, guys. I'm really bad. Apache-ctl. That's just great. -k restart. There we are. Refresh. And we still have the problem, but that's not something to worry about. Actually, did make it happen. Okay, stop it and start it again. There we are. Okay, now it's gone away. You have, of course, to use it with admin rights. And that was a quite bit of a pain in this video, but it's good you see this, because sometimes you get an error and you don't really know what to do. But in this case, you just need to set your time zone in the PHP ini. And don't forget to uncomment the date setting in order to make this apply. So now if you want to look at the source code, we will see that down here we have our date with the seconds, and you can see it's 12 a.m. I believe this is. No, it's 12 p.m. I don't know. I'm not very I'm not very good with 24-hour format, but it's almost 1 a.m. and that's quite intense. Awakeness intensifies. But yeah, I should stop this video now and quit everything here. But you can see it works. It refreshes with the seconds. And that's what we want to do. And of course, if we won't supply anything, or if we want to set this to false, we don't get that. Okay, so I hope this helped you, and I hope this served as quite a good in-between part. I know it was a long video. I know it was a bit of rambling, and I might redo this video or cut it together. But see you in another video. Goodbye.